All right, everyone, a big win for Trump on DACA because he's done exactly what I thought he should do, which is he's getting rid of it, but he's not simply scrapping it outright day one, kicking a bunch of people out. He's referring it to the legislature to solve the problem. Huzzah! That's exactly what Obama should have done in the first place, but Obama didn't want to work with the legislature. You see, Obama felt bad because he thought, I'm so legendary, I'm so bigger than anybody else, I'm like the greatest dude ever, and he had a big head, and he said, well, the legislature's people rejected my message in the first 2 years, elected a bunch of Republicans to the House and Senate. I no longer have a mandate to do whatever the hell I want in a legislative sense, so I'm just going to legislate via executive action, including DACA, which is just an executive order. It's a memorandum. Here's what DACA is. DACA is Obama decided he didn't want to enforce aspects of the law as duly and legally passed by the legislature and past executive administrations. He said, I consider this immoral, and I'm the ultimate arbiter of what is and is not correct in the entire world. So I'm simply going to tell the federal agencies responsible for enforcing immigration policy, you can go hang yourself. You're not going to be enforcing it anymore. I'm deferring action. These people are here illegally. We know who they are, but I don't care. Now, I may fundamentally agree with Obama that somebody who came here when they're 2 or 3 years old, I don't feel threatened by them. I consider them assimilated. The civic sense of that branch of nationalism. It's not a problem to me. But the legislature disagrees, Mr. Obama. You're attempting to create law, essentially, by executive action, by ignoring laws that exist and saying, just don't enforce them. Well, that's not a long-term solution. See, Obama expected, I'm doing such a wonderful job, everyone loves me so much, the next president will be a Democrat, and so DACA will stand. And it'll stand forever, because by the time, any Republicans ever elected, nobody will support repealing it. It'll be a wonderful thing, and eventually the legislature will codify it. It didn't happen. Trump happened, in his own words, of course, responding to Hillary Clinton's very, very funny book. So Hillary loses, and DACA gets destroyed. Now, my worry was that he was going to take apart DACA, say, okay, we're immediately returning to the old way of enforcement, number one. Number two, not consulting the legislature. But he's decided to do the wise thing, which is to go through the effort. And to those of you who are Trump fans and you think, well, there's a lot of never-Trumpers, neocons, they love illegal immigration. Okay, be that as it may. He's willing to put in the effort. He's willing to take the time to do it properly. That's a commendable thing for him to do. It also allows him to grandstand a little bit because he can say, hey, I can show mercy too. I'm letting Congress handle this because they should have handled it in the first place, legally speaking. Let them hammer out something. It comes to my desk and then we'll see what happens. That's what Obama should have done, but Obama never had the balls to go before the legislature once the House was controlled by Republicans and say, hey, I think we need this kind of reform, that kind of reform. I want to negotiate with you. We'll do give and take. That's the way government's supposed to work. It's not supposed to be Obama gets everything that he fucking wants and the legislature is totally muzzled, or else Obama looks like a sourpuss and won't work with them at all and does whatever he can in an executive fashion. He did that for 6 years. And he had the first 2 years, by the way, of his first term to do whatever he wanted. Democrats controlled the House and Senate. What did he do? He went golfing. He did nothing. Trump, so far, has been fairly effectual. Not as effectual as I would like, but he's been fairly effectual. DACA's gone. It goes to the legislature, as is legally proper. He tore apart the TPP, said, no, we're not signing this. Renegotiating NAFTA. Big thing during the election, both of those. Nobody wanted the TPP signed, including a lot of Democrats. They may act after the fact like, it's such a horrible thing. China will run roughshod over us. Bullshit. China would have done that under the TPP because they eventually would have been party to it. It was warned openly by many people that would happen. I concur with the sentiment. I think Johnson warned about that as well. Oh yeah, they're going to get on that and they're going to manipulate it. They're going to be the ones in command, basically, of our own trade if we sign this deal. NAFTA, being renegotiated, even if it's a half-assed result, will be better than the former. He's put weight on North Korea. I have no problem with Trump at the moment. The idea that ending DACA is bigoted, what are you talking about? It's an executive program. It's just an executive action that Obama happened to take. Trump is within his rights to dismantle it. And he's actually showing remarkable restraint by referring it to the legislature. Bernie Sanders comes out yesterday. Oh, Trump is such an evil, horrible, despicable man for ending DACA. Now 800,000 people are at hazard of being deported. Not if you're willing to work with him and with the Republicans to hammer something out that makes sense, Mr. Sanders. But you, and others like you, got so foolish and complacent thinking that progress always moved in your direction for the rest of human history that you don't see a compelling need to work with anybody in another political movement. Oh, those evil... No, I'm not going to work with those evil bigots. There's no such thing as negotiation. Everything is either 100% left or 100% right, whatever the hell that means. That's the way people like Sanders have begun to think. That's why our government's strangulated. It was strangulated under Obama because he wanted 100% of whatever he wanted, a mandate, to carte blanche, to do exactly as he wanted. And when he couldn't get his way, he settled for executive action insofar it was possible to do that. He wanted to expand DACA further. He also wanted to grant amnesty to a bunch of people. Something that, by the way, when he was running for election, he's like, no, I don't support amnesty. No, we're going to do this the proper and legal way. What does he suggest then years later? Oh, yeah, I'm going to grant amnesty to a bunch of people. Which is another reason why his approval foundered. Which is another reason why Trump won the election. Obama was instrumental in that. It wasn't just Hillary Clinton was weak. It wasn't just Grandmaster 40 chess strategy. It was also a referendum on Obama, especially in the Rust Belt where there was no recovery. And part of that is the immigration debate. It may not have as much of an impact on that as government interventionism and socialist programs that we suffer under and things like that, and world economic movement as well, the growth of new economies, the faltering of some old ones. That's more clearly responsible for the Rust Belt's problems. But that's not the perception. The perception is it has to do more with immigration. That's wrong, but it is the perception. And it is a component of it. It's just a lesser component. So it's not entirely undeserved that Obama gets flack for that, of course. Trump will take DACA, and he's ending it. But he's also saying that for the next 6 months, hey, no, I don't plan to mass deport a bunch of college kids and people who fought in our military. I want Congress to handle it. You take care of the issue because that's your job. What the fuck else are you here for? You're the ones that are supposed to make it into a bill for me to pass or veto. It's not supposed to be handled at the executive level. All he has done is end an executive action that was never truly fully legal to begin with, to tell the truth. It was Obama's way of saying, I'm not going to enforce the law, even though that's sort of my job description. I'm the chief executive, but I disagree with this legislation, so I'm going to ignore it. That's what DACA really was. It wasn't a bill. It wasn't some super special program that was codified by anyone in the legislature. It was Obama's stroke of the pen. And so Trump is legally entitled to end it any time he wants. Good for him. I'm glad he did. I'm also glad he referred it to the legislature because, by the way, I don't want to see a bunch of people who came here. They would become stateless people. Somebody came here when they're 2-3 years old. They have no ties. They don't have a home country other than the U.S. Really, in the literal sense, in the cultural sense, they have no ties to Mexico or Honduras or Poland or wherever the fuck it happens to be. They never really been there. They weren't raised there. They were raised here. Some of them fought in our military. I would grant them conditional residency. Okay, you fought for this country? Yeah, I have no problem with you. Trust me. You went to college here? Yeah, well, you got like a 3.9 GPA? Yeah, you can stay. Just don't commit any crimes. It's conditional for a while. That's what I would do. But you can't just do that by executive action. You have to go through the legislature. Otherwise, it's not long term. If it doesn't go through the legislature, what'll happen is this. And this is why anyone who's like worried, oh, the never-Trumpers and Democrats will basically bring back DACA from the dead, it'll just be legislative. Okay, maybe so. That might be the case. But think of it this way. If Trump just ends it in an executive fashion and deports a bunch of people, who's to say the next president, if they're like a Democrat, that they don't just reinstate it? Then you have the same fucking problem. He's more worried about building his wall right now, and he should be, because then it staves off the problem for future generations, so we don't have to have this crappy debate over and over every decade. Since I was a little kid, they've been arguing over this. They were arguing about it long before that, too. For 50 years, we've had this cultural conversation, and nobody has stepped up to the plate to suggest, hey, we could build one piece of critical infrastructure, regardless of the form, really, And it would at least partially solve this problem for all future generations as long as it's maintained. Why don't we do that? Nobody had the balls to do that. Reagan. Ronnie Reagan himself failed on this issue. He got everything else perfectly lined up with, what was it, Stimson-Mazzoli, I think it was called. Everything else is lined up. It was supposed to include, hey, we're going to increase our border defense. It never did. Ronald Reagan failed on that venture. Trump's the first one to apparently take it seriously. He's the first one to apparently take it seriously, at least in the modern era, actually having border defense and wanting to enforce the law. But he's giving Congress a chance to change the law. He's giving them a chance to grant some sort of status, regardless of the form. He's giving them a chance to handle it. And some of those Republicans come from states and regions where there are a lot of immigrants. They're going to have pressure on them to have something in place so that those who have done nothing particularly wrong, they were brought here in some cases against their will as little kids or whatever. They speak the lingo. They're part of our culture. They're Americans for all intents and purposes. They're not from another country per se, except they happen to be born there. Okay, well then that's a problem for the legislature, because otherwise it's not a long-term solution. The left and right should come together on this. If the right wants to deport a bunch of people, you need to have the legislature involved in doing that. Because otherwise it's just a shitty executive action that can be undone the next time there's a different administration. Whether it's in a few years, or whether it's in like 7 years, or whether it's, after a couple more presidencies. Problem comes back. No long-term solution. You kick the can down the road. That's the problem with executive action. If you want to protect these people and you're on the left, work with the Republicans in Congress and hammer something out. Do a give and take. No one party right now has supermajority in the Senate. You're going to have to negotiate. Trump has already said, let's reduce it to a simple vote for some purposes. Maybe that's justified. Right now that hasn't been done. Negotiate. Do your job. The legislature has been so defanged and so pointless that we've almost operated without a functioning legislature in this country since about 2010. Almost a decade we've had basically no legislative governance in this country. You wonder why we have problems? And those that are willing to function are in such a small minority, like Rand Paul or something, that no one even listens to them. They should. Let Rand take command of the Republican Party. Give him control of it. Make him head of the Senate. That's the way. Get rid of McConnell. He's an ineffectual turtle man anyway. McConnell's crazy. He doesn't like most Republicans anymore, and he likes the Democrats. He doesn't like anybody. Except John McCain. He likes him. I wonder if they make out or something like that. Probably do. But yeah, Trump is winning big on DACA. This is a huge thing for him. By referring it to Congress, he gets to wash his hands of the situation too. Because people say, oh, this is bigoted and stuff. He'll say, well, it's Congress' job. They're the ones that are supposed to do this shit, not me. Obama was being wrong by just doing it in an executive fashion. I'm trying to avoid that. Now, if I have to, this is what Trump will say 6 months later. If they haven't hammered something out, he'll say, okay, well, you got one more chance. Otherwise, I got to act on my own. I got to enforce the law. It's my job as an executive. I don't think he wants to, by the way. I don't think he wants to deport 1 million people who haven't committed any other crime. There's already, within DACA, if you've committed a felony or a serious misdemeanor, you're already out. Or several minor misdemeanors. You get forced out. You get deported. They still enforce that. So these individuals are not criminals. You can say, well, they're illegal. They don't have a status and they're from other shores. Okay, but they're not criminals in the generally understood sense. I don't think Trump has a problem with most people within that class. Some of them will probably get deported. But having simply an executive sort of thing going on isn't a long-term solution. Trump understands this. He's wise compared to Obama. He understands the fundamental problem of wanting to hammer something out that's permanent. Good. Good. That's a big win for him. That's what he should do. That's about all. Peace out.